Happy Tuesday, May 5th, 2020. I'm so excited because some mini Miss Montrullis have been arriving. First of all, Lucas has his, and he's introducing me to his puppy, Izzy Pickles, who I just love. Looks like a really soft spot for Miss Montrulli to hang out at. Thanks, Lucas, for sending us that. So cool. I hope you got to check your mail today and Mrs. Montrulli was in your mailbox. If she's not there yet, I bet she'll be there in the next 2 days. So keep sending me those great pictures. Love that, Lucas. Good job, buddy. All right, let's review our snap words. When I say it, you say it. Out. Be. See. Her. Now. More. All right, so for our practice of snap words today, you are going to do your Play-Doh writing and make each of those words in Play-Doh like Emily showed us she was doing. Great job, Em. All right, let's finish Flat Stanley. We have 2 chapters left to get through today. All right. Chapter 4. The Museum Thieves. Mr. and Mrs. O.J. Dart lived in the apartment above the lamb chops. Mr. Dart was an important man, the director of the famous Museum of Art downtown in the city. Stanley Lambchop had noticed in the elevator that Mr. Dart, who was ordinarily a cheerful man, had become quite gloomy, but he had no idea what the reason was. This is so hard to see. And then at breakfast one morning, he heard Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop talking about Mr. Dart. I see, said Mr. Lambchop, reading the paper over his coffee cup. That's still another painting that has been stolen from the famous museum. It says here that Mr. O.J. Dart, the director, is at his wit's end. Oh dear, are the police no help? Mrs. Lambchop asked. It seems not, said Mr. Lambchop. Listen to what the chief of police told the newspaper. We suspect a gang of sneak thieves. These are the worst kind. They work by sneakery, which makes them very difficult to catch. However, my men and I will keep trying. Meanwhile, I hope people will buy tickets for the policeman's ball and not park their cars where signs say don't. The next morning, Stanley Lambchop heard Mr. Dart talking to his wife in the elevator. These sneak thieves work at night, Mr. Dart said. It is very hard for our guards to stay awake when they have been on duty all day. And the famous museum is so big, we cannot guard every picture at the same time. I fear it is hopeless, hopeless, hopeless. I think Stanley is getting an idea. Suddenly, as if an electric light bulb had lit up in the air above his head, giving out little shooting lines of excitement, Stanley Lambchop had an idea. How did I know that? He told it to Mr. Dart. Stanley, Mr. Dart said, if your mother will give you her permission, I will put your plan to work this very night. Ooh, wonder what he said. Mrs. Lambchop gave her permission, but you will have to take a long nap this afternoon. She said, I won't have you up till all hours unless you do. That evening, after a long nap, Stanley went with Mr. Dart to the famous museum. Mr. Dart took him into the main hall, where the biggest and most important paintings were hung. He pointed to a huge painting that showed a bearded man wearing a floppy velvet hat, playing a violin for a lady who lay on a couch. There was a half-man, half-horse person standing behind them, and 3 fat children with wings were flying above. That, Mr. Dart explained, was the most expensive painting in the world. There was an empty picture frame on the opposite wall. We shall hear more about that later on. Mr. Dart took Stanley into his office and said, It is time for you to put on a disguise. I already thought of that, Stanley Lambchop said, and I brought one. My cowboy suit. It has a red bandana that I can tie over my face. Nobody will recognize me in a million years. No, Mr. Dart said. You will have to wear the disguise that I've chosen. From a closet he took a white dress a blue sash, a pair of shiny little pointed toes, shoes, not toes, a wide straw hat with a blue band that matched the sash, and a wig with a stick. The wig was made of blonde, long, and dun hair, done in ringlets. The stick was curved at the top, and it too had a blue ribbon on it. "In this shepherdess disguise," Mr. Dart said, "you will look like a painting that belongs in the main hall. We do not have cowboy pictures in the main hall." Stanley was so disgusted he could hardly speak. "I will look like a girl. That's what I will." You see this little dress and the wig. "That's what I will look like," he said. "I wish I never had this idea." But he was a good sport, so he put on the disguise. Back in the main hall, Mr. Dart helped Stanley climb up into the empty picture frame. Stanley was able to stay in place because Mr. Dart had cleverly put 4 small spikes in the wall, one for each hand and foot. The frame was perfectly fit. Against the wall, Stanley looked just like a picture. "Except for one thing," Mr. Dart said. "Shepherdesses are supposed to look happy. They smile at their sheep and at the sky. You look fierce, not happy, Stanley." Stanley tried hard to get a faraway look in his eyes and even smile a little bit. Mr. Dart stood back a few feet and stared at him for a moment. "Well," he said, "it may not be art, but I like what I like." He went off to make sure that certain other parts of Stanley's plan were taken care of, and Stanley was left alone. It was very dark in the main hall. A little bit of moonlight came through the windows, and Stanley could just make out the world's most expensive painting on the opposite wall. He felt as though the bearded man with the violin and the lady on the couch and the half-horse person and the winged children were all waiting, as he was, for something to happen. Time passed and he got tireder and tireder. Anyone would be tired this late at night, especially if he had to stand in a picture frame balancing on little spikes. Maybe they won't come, Stanley thought. Maybe the sneak thieves won't come at all. The moon went behind a cloud, and then the main hall was pitch dark. It seemed to get quieter, too, with the darkness. There was absolutely no sound at all. Stanley felt the hair on the back of his neck prickle beneath the golden curls of the wig. The creaking sound came from right out in the middle of the hallway. And even as he heard it, Stanley saw in the same place a tiny yellow glow of light. The creaking came again and the glow got bigger. A trap door had opened in the floor, and 2 men came up through it into the hall. Stanley understood everything at once. These must be the sneak thieves. They had a secret trap door entrance into the museum from outside. That was why they had never been caught. Here you can see the 2 sneak thieves. And now tonight they were back to steal the most expensive painting in the world. He held very still in his picture frame and listened to the sneak thieves. "This is it, Max," said the first one. "This is where we art robbers pull a sensational job, whilst the civilized community sleeps." "Right, Luther," said the other man. "In all this great city there is no one to suspect us." "Ha!" thought Stanley Lambchop, "that's what you think." The sneak thieves put down their lantern and took the world's most expensive painting off the wall. "What would anyone do?" "Who tried to capture us, Max?" the first man asked. "We would kill him. What else?" his friend replied. That was enough to frighten Stanley, and he was even more frightened when Luther came over and stared at him. "This sheep girl," Luther said. "I thought sheep girls were supposed to smile. Max, this one just looks scared." This sheep girl. Just in time, Stanley managed to get a faraway look in his eyes and to smile, sort of. "You're crazy, Luther," Max said. "She is smiling, and what a pretty little thing she is, too." That made Stanley furious. He waited until the sneak thieves had turned back to the world's most expensive painting, and he shouted his loudest, most terrifying voice, "Police! Police! Mr. Dart! The sneak thieves are here!" The sneak thieves looked at each other. "Max," said the first one very quietly, "I think I heard the sheep girl yell." "I think I did too," said Max in a quivering voice. "Oh boy, yelling pictures. We both need a rest." "You'll get a rest all right," shouted Mr. Dart, rushing in with the chief of police, and lots of guards and policemen behind him. "You'll get arrested." Ha! The sneak thieves were too mixed up by Mr. Dart's joke and too frightened by the policemen to put up a fight. Before they knew it, they had been handcuffed and led away to jail. The next morning, in the office of the chief of police, Stanley Lambchop got a medal. The day after that picture was in all the newspapers. Ooh, good job, Stanley. He was very brave. That sounded scary. All right, last chapter, chapter 5, Arthur's Good Idea. For a while, Stanley Lambchop was a famous name. Everywhere that Stanley went, people stared and pointed at him. He could hear them whisper, "Over there, Agnes, over there. That must be Stanley Lambchop, the one who caught the sneak thieves," and things like that. But after a few weeks, the whispering and staring stopped. People had other things to think about. Stanley did not mind. Being famous had been fun, but enough was enough. And then came a farther change, and it was not a pleasant one. People began to laugh and make fun of him as he passed by. "Hello, super skinny," they would shout, and even ruder things about the way he looked. Stanley told his parents how he felt. "It's the other kids I mostly mind," he said. "They don't like me anymore because I'm different." Flat. "Shame on them," Mrs. Lambchop said. "It is wrong to dislike people for their shapes, or their religion for that matter, or for the color of their skin." Ooh, they're bullying him. "I know," Stanley said. "Only maybe it's impossible for everybody to like everybody." "Perhaps," said Mrs. Lambchop, "but they could try." Later that night, Arthur Lambchop was woken by the sound of crying. In the darkness, he crept across the room and knelt by Stanley's bed. "Are you okay?" he said. "Go away," Stanley said. "Don't be mad at me," Arthur said. "You're still mad because I let you get tangled the day you were my kite, I guess." "Skip it, will you?" Stanley said. "I'm not mad. Go away." "Please, let's be friends." Arthur couldn't help crying a little too. "Oh, Stanley," he said, "please tell me what's wrong." Stanley waited for a long time before he spoke. "The thing is," he said, "I'm just not happy anymore. I'm tired of being flat. I want to be a regular shape again, like other people. But I'll have to go on being flat forever." Oops. "It makes me sick." "Oh, Stanley," Arthur said. He dried his tears on a corner of Stanley's sheet and could think of nothing more to say. "Don't talk about what I just said," said Stanley. "I don't want our folks to worry. That would only make it worse." "You're brave," Arthur said. "You really are." He took hold of Stanley's hand. The two brothers sat together in the darkness, being friends. They were both still sad, but each one felt a little better than they had before. And then suddenly, though he was not even trying to think, Arthur had an idea. He jumped up, turned on the light, and ran to the big storage box, where toys and things were kept. He began rummaging in the box. Stanley sat up in bed to watch. Arthur flung aside a football and some lead soldiers, and airplane models, and lots of wooden blocks. And then he said, "Aha!" He had found what he was looking for, an old bicycle pump. He held it up, and Stanley and he looked at each other. "Okay," Stanley said at last, "but take it easy." He put the end of the long pump hose in his mouth and clamped his lips tightly about it so no air could escape. "I'll go slowly," Arthur said. "If it hurts or anything, wiggle your hand at me." He began to pump. At first nothing happened, except that Stanley's cheeks bulged a bit. Arthur watched his hand, and there was no wiggle signal, so he pumped on. Then, suddenly, Stanley's top half began to swell. It's working, shouted Arthur, pumping away. Stanley spread his arms so that the air could get around inside him more easily. He got bigger and bigger. The buttons of his pajama top burst off. Pop, pop, pop. A moment more and he was all rounded out. Head and body, arms and legs. But not his right foot. That foot stayed flat. Arthur stopped pumping. It's like trying to do the very last bit of these long balloons, he said. Maybe a shake would help. Stanley shook his right foot twice, and with a little whooshing sound, it swelled out to match the left one. There stood Stanley Lambchop as he used to be, as if he had never been flat at all. Thank you, Arthur, Stanley said. Thank you very much. The brothers were shaking hands when Mr. Lambchop strode into the room, with Mrs. Lambchop right behind him. We heard you, said Mr. Lambchop, up and talking when you ought to be asleep, eh? Shame on George, said Mrs. Lambchop. Stanley's round again. You're right, said Mr. Lambchop, noticing. Good for you, Stanley. Oh, these parents are weird. I'm the one who did it, Arthur said. I blew him up. Everyone was terribly excited and happy, of course. Mrs. Lambchop made hot chocolate to celebrate the occasion, and several toasts were drunk to Arthur for his cleverness. When the little party was over, Mr. and Mrs. Lambchop tucked the boys back into their beds, kissed them good night, and then turned out the light. Good night, they said. Good night, said Stanley and Arthur. It had been a long, very tiring day. Very soon, all the Lambchops were asleep. The end. That was a great one. Adeline wanted to hear the end of our story. So, now that we finished Flat Stanley, I want you to tell me what your favorite part of the story was. Maybe your favorite part was when he caught the sneak thieves in the museum and dressed up like a little girl. Maybe you liked the part where he was a kite and was wrapped around the tree because his brother wasn't paying attention to him. Maybe you liked the part where he mailed himself to his friends. Or maybe you liked the part where Arthur blew him back up. So today, I want you to take your notebook and write the sentence stem. My favorite part of the story was, and then I want you to choose what your favorite part was, and then I want you to illustrate a picture. Okay, let's keep practicing our addition with regrouping. So go ahead and turn your notebook on the side. Yesterday we practiced 2-digit plus 1-digit with regrouping. Today we're going to practice 2-digit with 2-digit and regrouping. So I have my tens place and ones place. So 22 plus 19. Make your paper look like mine. My 2 and my 9 are in my ones place. My 2 and my 1 are in my tens place. Good, and I'm going to draw a line to keep them separate. And I always start with my ones place, so put 9 in your brain, and then take 2 hops. 9, 10, 11. Great job. So my 1 goes in my ones place, and my 1 in my tens place gets carried to the tens place. It's like we're sorting. All the ones stay together, all the tens stay together. Now, instead of yesterday when we had only 2 add-ins, now we have 3. So I'm going to start with my greatest number, which is 2. Put 2 in your brain. And then I'm going to take 1 hop to 3 and 1 more hop to 4. So 4 is in my tens place. So my total answer is 41. 4 and a 1. Oh, I'm so sorry. It's hard to write backwards. All right, let's practice another one. I'm going to draw a line to keep them separate. So now I have 47 plus 13. So let's write it. My 4 is in my tens place. My 7 is in my ones place. Same thing underneath. My 1 is in my tens place. My 3 is in my ones place. I'm going to draw a line to keep them separate. And I always, no matter what, start in my ones place. So I'm going to start with 7 plus 3. So put 7 in your brain and take 3 hops. Ready? 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so I know 10 has a 0 in the ones place, and we bring the 1 from the tens to the tens place. Let me see if I can scoot over. All right, that feels better. All right, so now I go to my tens place, and instead of just 2 add-ins like I had yesterday, now I have 3. So I start with my greatest number, put 4 in your brain. We're going to take 1 hop, 5, and 1 more hop, 6. So I have 6 and a 0. 60 is my final answer. My 6 is in the tens place. My 0 is in the ones place. All right, let's do one more, and then I'm going to send you a worksheet to work on. I need a new page because I'm writing really big. You might not. That's okay. All right, so I have 39, 3 in the tens place, 9 in the ones place, plus 16. 1 in my tens place, 6 in my ones place. Draw a line to keep them separate. All right, let's start with my ones place. Put 9 in your brain, and we're going to take 6 hops. This is a pretty big one. Stay with me. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Great job. So my 5 is in my ones place. I put it in the ones place. Carry my 1 from my tens to the tens place. And now I'm going to add my 3 add-ins. Put 3 in your brain first. 4, 5. Great job. 55 is my final answer. All right, friends, this is a really good example of if you're not sure about your basic facts like 9 plus 6, now would be a good time to work on your flashcards. Mom and Dad, if you are seeing your students struggle with addition like this, quick facts like 3 plus 5, 5 plus 5, get some flashcards and practice some flashcards. This is where we're heading. This is so much more complicated than what we're used to. So having to stop and draw a picture or count on our fingers, that's what's going to slow down the process and get them confused. So now would be a great time to practice your flashcards. All right, I'll be back tomorrow with our normal reading lesson. We're done with Flat Stanley. I really enjoyed that. Please keep sending me pictures of what your Flat Miss Monteroli is doing. And I can't wait to hear from you. Bye.